All right, we're recording live, man. How you doing today, bro? How's the
Oh,
week?
doing well. How about yourself?
Good, man. You look like you're about to go meet with the DA.
I hope not.
Now, I can't complain. We had a pretty good weekend. I actually had the best pho I've ever had.
Pho?
Yeah.
What's pho?
You don't know what pho is, bro?
Is it like some
Like that
like
Japanese ramen. It's spelled PHO.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Bro, that shit was so good. It was like ribs inside. That shit was busting, bro. I low-key want to go get it again today, but I know we're probably not. But yeah, man, all in all, good weekend.
Nice. They got some pho places near me. I could probably check that out.
Bro, especially in the wintertime because it has like the soup at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's a good date. Take Antoinette, y'all go get some pho, and yeah, you can't go wrong, man. It's healthy,
Nice.
it's good, it's hearty, it's everything you need.
Well, we like Thai, and we tried checking out a Thai place near where we lived, but we found a fly in the food. So it killed going to that place again, which sucks.
Yeah, well, just tell them hold the flies next time.
Yeah, maybe that's my issue. I didn't specify.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, guys, this video we're going to be talking about DeFi / yield farming war stories. How we got our battle scars. I've been yield farming since a little after DeFi summer. Like I remember all the Tomb forks and the Ohm forks and all these things. Yeah, we're just going to talk about some of the lessons we learned, some of the mistakes we made, so that you guys don't have to make them yourself. Isaac, when did you get into yield farming? What's your backstory on that whole thing?
Well, I never handled really anything in yield farming until 2020 when I started working for Alex. And then I just like jumped into the deep end. Then I started managing a lot of money in yield farming in a very short amount of time. But the first ever protocol I worked with was DeFi Kingdoms, actually, which is just a gamified DEX. And I don't know, it's pretty fun. When Alex first hired me, he was like, "Hey, do you want to get hired to just play video games all day?" And I was like, "Yo, yeah, sounds good to me. Play video games all day." Little did I know, DeFi Kingdoms is probably one of the least like gamified games I've ever like experienced. It's very clearly just a DEX, and the game element is like a very loose veneer, So I got right into it then, and then I started working with other protocols on top of it because we had to diversify our account and such.
Okay, man. So I guess let's go ahead and start off. Like, maybe explain your biggest win and your biggest L in yield farming or DeFi that you can think of.
Biggest win has to be DeFi Kingdoms, because at the time we were the largest position in all of DeFi Kingdoms by a factor of 2. So the second, by the second largest guy, number 2 is literally half what we held. And when I'm saying our position, this is in a 1, which was the signature token for using anything in DeFi Kingdoms. It's their farm token they'd pay you in and everything else. So we were the largest holder by a factor of 2, and I wasn't there when he entered the position, or when he entered DeFi Kingdoms. He entered it a few months before I got hired, when one token was at about, I want to say like $7, and it shot up in value to something like, I think it was 15 or 16 bucks at one point. And when he was in, it was like multiple $1 million, right? And he's in there, and he just doubled his money. Like he made an insane, like green, right? Like he's in the money, and he just didn't sell because he was told by somebody, "Oh no, I swear it's going to go up further. I swear it's going to go from 15 to 20. It's going to be 30." So he was like, "Okay,
not a single profit, like not a dollar?
No
That's
profit,
crazy,
no
man.
profit at all." He's an all or nothing kind of guy. So when he takes profit, he takes big profit. And when he doesn't, he takes fuck all. So I respect it. That's how you do it. Because and this is where the mindset is. And a lot of people, I think, play the game like this. And this is why we were good at working together. Because I'm a very risk averse person. And I will always say, take a little bit now. Take a little bit now. And if there's ever a decision, I usually say, how confident are you on X happening? And how confident are you on Y happening? Oh, you're 20% sure X or Y is going to happen. Oh, you're the other percent that X is going to happen. Okay, let's take off as much as you are that it's going to go bad. So you're 30% sure the market's going to move against us. Let's take 30% off. That's and obviously it's a very arbitrary because these numbers are totally speculative. But if you're feeling like there's a chance that the market's going to move against you, I think de-risking as much as you can is the move, or as much as you're confident that it's going to move against you is how we do it. That's not how he plays, though. He plays a little differently. He's kind of if I'm 51%, then that's 100% I'm, moving that direction.
Damn. And I'm sure he was pissed when it went down, huh? Did he think it was oh, maybe it's going to come back up?
Well, it did eventually.
Took more off the table.
So what prevented him from going from cutting his losses, or not losses, but taking profit where he was the thought okay, it dipped a bit now, but it's going to go up. What if it goes back? And then it'll just keep going. Maybe it's just retesting around X amount and it's going to actually go back up. It wasn't retesting. It was dumping, and it dumped down. I think at its lowest is at 250 or something like that.
Jesus Christ. And where did he buy it at initially?
I think just off of the DeFi Kingdom marketplace. I think they have a US. Yeah, because I think that they have some bridge that brings you from. Oh no, it was built. What was it built off of? It was built off of another chain, and then they ended up building their own new chain that just was a total flop months after this.
I never played it, but I remember Eli told me about it.
Yeah, Eli, he was with us during a lot of this. It was very silly. But because it was the Jewel token that we were farming. The Jewel token was their bullshit farm token that they gave us. I think it was Avalanche. Yeah. But yeah, so that's it went down really far. It was a few months of just yield farming on DeFi Kingdoms when it was down. Then it was releasing the developers were releasing Crystal Veil, which was a expansion onto a new chain, and they're building their own chain, this DeFi Kingdoms chain. And it was a lot of hype, and we're this is our moment. This is our moment to get the fuck out, to get out of this, sell the news, get the fuck off this chain, take some profit. If the price of Jewel and One goes up, if Jewel goes beyond $7, let's aim to take profit on this. And we did. It went up to $9, and I think the highest it went up was briefly at 12. And we were exiting the entire time, moving the market every time we exited, because we were exiting $500,000. Yeah, he made money. Yeah, okay. He made decent money on that, which was really nice.
So let's talk about a few lessons there. A few things that I hear is that, so one thing about yield farming, it's three main ways to get a real yield. And when I say real yield, I mean you're getting a piece of revenue that the protocol is actually making. That can either come from insurance premiums, using your liquidity to facilitate borrowing and lending on an Aave or Compound, or to facilitate trades on a decentralized exchange, kind of like Uniswap, or what was the project called again? DeFi Kingdoms, which was a DEX also. So a lot of times, if it's not one of those three things, usually it's the rewards are being paid from token inflation, which is they'll have a token allocation. The founders get their slice. The VC, if it's VC backed, they'll have some for the community where they'll just dish out into the market so people can buy. But they'll have a large amount for what they call incentives. So let's say you want people to come and use your decentralized exchange. Well, instead of just paying them the real yield from the swap fees, which if you're not Uniswap, the swap fees are probably going to be minuscule. So in an effort to try to bootstrap liquidity and get people trading on your DEX, they'll have some, in this case, let's call it Jewel tokens set aside so that once you're providing liquidity, not only are you getting paid in the real yield, but you're getting paid in the platform's token, which is Jewel. Now, given that these tokens are highly inflationary, you have to think when you're yield farming, you're competing with other farmers, right? It's not like a traditional farm where it's like, all right, you got your crops. This other farmer across the street has its own crops and we're separate. It's almost like the crops is only a certain amount of crops underground, and no matter where your farm is determines on what you can get. It's not like a separate thing. So it's a good idea to, like, this farming token, a lot of people are just farming the token and they're dumping it because they know it's inflationary, and then they know people are doing the same thing. Even if the protocol has like fundamental value, just think about how much Bitcoin went down, how much ETH went down, how much Apple went down, how much Amazon went down. Like, it doesn't matter how good something is, even if you believe in the long term, it could be a good idea, even if you're a swing trader, to take some profits off the table so that you can like take advantage of other opportunities. That's kind of what I picked up from that. Isaac, what's your thoughts?
No, I would agree. Actually, what I could show you is I have some DeFi strategy notes I could show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so these are what we used to use in order to figure out if we wanted to get involved with a certain protocol or not. So let me share my screen here.
Okay.
So in order to discern whether you want to use a protocol or not, what I used to do, and my last company, what we used to work with, was we would kind of go through everything step by step, starting with usually like what is the APY, what are the rewards, what are the fees, liquidity in LPs, lending, borrowing pools. The main idea is that, like, the way that crypto works and the way that they're going to entice you to use certain yield farms is they're going to say, oh, you know, we give out 500% APY. You're going to, you know, 5x your money just by letting it sit here. No, it's nothing crazy. We're not going to fuck you over. And oftentimes, if they're promising that, there's usually something sketchy involved, because a fairly golden rule of investment is that if you're getting paid more interest, you're usually taking on more risk. There's almost a direct correlation, or I guess, direct correlation between the amount of risk that you're taking on and the amount of interest you're going to be getting paid. Not always, but generally speaking. In DeFi, that's especially the case because they have to convince users to actually use their platforms. And when you look at the APY and you see 500%, this is going to include a lot of bullshit. So the main thing is that you're usually going to be get paid in a lot of things like, oh, we'll pay you, 500%, but X% of that is our reward token. And as was just eloquently explained by Vincent, reward tokens are these farm tokens, highly inflationary. Often they only really exist in order to pay out, users and the, investors and the owners of the application, because their main purpose is really just as like kind of a buffer on people's interest in order to boost up that APY. They don't really have a lot of utility. They might invent some utility like, oh, look at our most, our highest APY earning pool is, X farm token and USDC. Hey, that's a reason to hold our crappy farm token because you're going to get paid even more crappy farm token. And
Maybe
they'll set up all these
our NFT
too.
that does nothing with this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, which was with Froggers was one of those where it's like, oh, buy the Frogger, you get the Frogger NFT. What do you get now? Well, now you get our crappy Frogger token that we're gonna, if you stake your Frogger, we'll pay you in Frogger token. And it's like there's no utility in any of this. And oftentimes in the fine print, not often, but this is the case sometimes, there will be fees for removing liquidity. There will a lot of times be lockup periods where it's like, oh, you've put in your money, we're going to lock it up. And if you're not going to get paid anything for X amount of time. And if you want to remove it, we're going to have to take a fee of, X% of whatever you locked up.
Deposit fees sometimes too.
Yeah, deposit fees. All these things exist in some regard or another to just keep you locked in. because that's how they will function as an exchange. They need liquidity. They're trying to set up a system that draws in liquidity, whether it's high APY, whether it's kind of sneaky, fine print details, whether it's fees. They're trying to build up liquidity and make a profit, So it's like, and that's why people get into DeFi oftentimes with this idea of like, I'm just gonna make a ton of money. Like this is like insane technology and just prints money. And sometimes that can happen, but it's very rare and it's usually very fleeting. And more often than not, like these people and these protocols exist because they make money. And they're either making money from kind of schemes and like these, nifty little fees and all these other things, or they're making money from people using their exchange. They're making money on people that are exchanging tokens. And if you're a new, protocol and you're trying to entice people, you usually have to rely a lot more on the scheming than on the actual use, on like money made from uses, because there's just not as many users yet. You don't have that Lindy. And Lindy means like when something is around for a while, it tends to retain value. When something's new, it's more likely to die because it doesn't have that retention built in yet. So just be wary of those things. That's something that we would always look at. We'd look at how much of the APY is real, how much of it is crap, and if there's any, we called it fuckery, but you could, come up with other, more family-friendly terminology. But that's what we said. We said, is there fuckery? We said no audit for the protocol. Always make sure protocols are audited by, trustworthy audits. The blockchain they use sucks. Huge one.
I want to add one thing to that audit thing. I forget what the firm was, but there was like an audit firm that most of the projects was getting their audit from, which is like, they're like the shitty auditing firm.
Yeah.
It was cheap. It was quick. So you want to verify that the auditing firm is legit, see what other projects they audited. But the most important thing is that when you look at an audit, a lot of times there will be an audit that comes out first and it'll give you like things that they fucked up on that they have to fix. A lot of projects will just post that audit and not even fix the thing. You want to see another audit after that where they highlight those points that were fucked up on basically and show that they were fixed too.
On top of that too, bug hunters, like if you have a protocol that pays people for locating bugs on your protocol or on the protocol, like that's like a great feature. If they're paying users to locate errors and fix them, that's amazing. They can. And they can. There's a lot of sites, a lot of protocols that will have rewards for people that locate bugs. And that's usually a good sign because it means that they are open to people pointing out errors so they can actually fix it. If you have a protocol that is not open to criticism or is not trying to incentivize locating errors or issues, that is a scam. I'm just going to say, even if they're like, it's more often than not, that's like a scam. Like they don't want you to point out issues because they don't give a shit. They know this is not going to last very long and they're trying to make a buck while it's, occurring. So
I can't tell you how many times, mostly on the Tune forks, I was in Discords and I'm like, man, something happened. Like it was the deposit fee didn't say it was, or I'll like put it in like the main chat because you DM them and they take forever. And then they'll get back to you and they'll be like, they'll delete the comment first so no one else sees it. And they're like, bro, can you not like, what do they call it? Put FOMO in here or FUD. That's what they say.
FUD, yeah.
Like, FUD.
Fear, uncertainty, doubt. FUD.
Yeah, man. Like you'll notice the difference. Like Isaac said, if people care about the protocol and it lasting, they will welcome these kind of feedback, like questions and comments, concerns, whatever you want to call it. But if they're deleting your comments and they'll like ban you for talking for like a day or an hour, it's a red flag.
100%. And if you're ever talking with somebody who's apparently like, customer support for one of these protocols, often on like Telegram or Signal, you're also just going to get inundated with a lot of scammers who aren't even associated with the protocol, but will put in their bio, customer service for X protocol. They'll have their username as being something related to the protocol, and they'll just start asking you for financial details and all these other nonsensical things. We would get that so often that it was almost impossible sometimes to actually figure out if the person talking to you was real customer service or if they were just some scammer.
Yeah.
Or if there was a difference, you know, because some of these sites were so, you know, bizarre and
you had to be there, man.
yeah, it's crazy. So it's, I don't know, dealing with these is very sketchy. That's why, though, you get the high APY. I mean, some of the most high APY accounts or protocols that we found were also definitely some of the sketchiest ones. And, you know, you just got to be cognizant of that. That's how they convince you. You know, and here's the thing. You can always make a few less percentages on APY as long as you're securing your whole bag. It's never worth losing your whole bag or even like whatever you're investing with because the APY is just, it's too unresistible. I have to take it, you know?
I second that. Yeah. So one thing, guys, you know, we always talk about like connecting your MetaMask to your hardware wallet so that once you sign a transaction, you're signing it in your hardware wallet as well. And that's especially if you don't know how to like read the smart contract to know what you're actually signing. So when you're doing yield farming, like if it's not like Uniswap or like Aave or something like that, like you can still get risky on Uniswap V3, but if you're doing we recommend having a separate hot wallet for risky farming because you can connect to a protocol and they can have whatever the hell in that smart contract. And a lot of times time is of the essence. Like there's a lot of protocols where you can get extremely high yields for like a few hours and you can actually make good money, but a lot of times it's a rug and they can like scam you and pull funds out of your wallet because you let them do it because you allowed it unknowingly. So we always recommend like using a separate wallet for like super high risk degen farming.
100%. I would use it for almost everything, and especially the hyper degen farming, you know, because you're exposing yourself to so much crap by, you know, being involved in this sort of degen stuff. And I think even included too, like, yeah, as Vincent was just saying, always check out the application on DeFi Llama or any other, you know, like kind of history index app that looks at these different protocols over time and see if the APY is something that just happened in the last few days, or if it's something that has been consistent for months or however long, you know, your risk time frame is. Because there's more than a few protocols that we were looking at that had insane APYs, but then we looked at it and we're like, the APY average for, you know, let's say like a BTC, USDC was like 5% for months, and then it just shot up to 500%. There's usually something sketchy going on in that. I would say usually like 99% of the time, maybe all the time. There's something sketchy with that because oftentimes these sites will actually have like bugs or issues or will be used for laundering or something like that. And you'll see this massive explosion in APY because somebody externally is messing with the system or the system itself is, you know, undergoing some sort of issue. You can also look at, and always make sure to just check out the amount of liquidity on the site and check out the, what is it? It's the liquidity locked versus the, what was it? There was some site in particular. I remember we almost got involved with this like Russian DeFi site that I forget the name of it, but it had an issue where it was clearly.
Was it vodka finance? No, I'm just
no. It wasn't super memey. It was called something silly. We actually talked with one of the guys that ran it. And it was just such a scam, like such a huge scam. What they were doing is they were borrowing user funds on fake money, on money they didn't have. So they were inventing USDC on the UI of the website that didn't actually exist, that they didn't actually own, and then borrowing user funds on that. So they were using fake USDC as collateral on user funds. And there was an issue where users were then trying to pull out their funds but they couldn't do it because they were all being loaned to fake money.
Honeypot.
Yeah, honeypot, just total scam. And they even revealed it. I forget exactly how they revealed it, but I remember I was examining their site, and it was very obvious that the amount of liquidity, I think it was the collateral necessary for the total amount of funds being borrowed on their site was not actually present on their site. So when I examined the amount of liquidity that was being hosted on their site, it didn't actually match the amount of collateral needed in order to borrow the total amount of funds that were borrowed on their site. And I was like, okay, so there's obviously fake collateral in the mix here that is being used to borrow the amount of funds. And we even talked with the guy who was not the owner of the protocol, but worked with it. And we asked him about this issue. And he was like, yeah, no, we do take, certain leveraged positions, with our farm token as the collateral token. And the value that we give to the farm token is based purely off of a exchange that we set. So they set the value of their own farm token however they like, then printed an infinite amount, however much they needed, in order to use as collateral for user funds that they themselves borrowed.
Welcome to crypto.
Yeah, so it was a total scam. It was a complete and total scam. But that's not an uncommon thing. Like, that's actually, I believe that is how, I believe FTX did something similar to that as well. They were borrowing a lot of customer funds using their own token as collateral. And that's how they got screwed, was because then when Binance dumped the FTX token, FTT, then it dumped the price and they got essentially liquidated, I believe, on a lot of the different, a bunch of their different borrowed positions.
Damn. Crypto, man. So now that we talked about that, what was some of your guys' biggest wins?
Yeah, so we had a pretty good one on. Well, I mean, honestly,
I meant to say your biggest. I think we covered your biggest win. I meant to say biggest loss.
Oh, sorry. Biggest L.
Yeah.
Biggest L. I think our biggest L was probably when we were messing with this Whirlpool. Which, if you don't know what Whirlpool is, Whirlpool lending is when you basically have a position. Let's say it's providing AVAX to a liquidity pool, and I think it was just a one-sided Whirlpool. But say you're providing AVAX to a liquidity pool, and you're pretty damn confident that AVAX is going to stay within a range of, let's say, like $10 to $13. And you're pretty confident about that. So you decide to leverage with your own money on that one frame, that one range. Okay. So you're supplying liquidity, but only within a certain range of the price. All right. So the price, as long as it is between 10 and 12, and the closer it gets to 11, you are making, a lot of money. You're making X amounts leveraged earnings, interest on it. So we set up a Whirlpool position, which was basically that. And we made a bet that, I think it was with AVAX, that it was going to be within a certain price range. And basically it moved outside our price range. And I think that the issue with doing a Whirlpool is that my bread and butter was delta neutral. Delta neutral is predictable as much as you can get with crypto. It still isn't super predictable, but it's as much as you can get with crypto. It's just interest. You're just making money on interest. Doesn't matter so much where price is. When it does, you have a huge runway to fix it or to pull out or to whatever. When doing Whirlpool, it's a very risk-on yield farming. It's not directional. It's not like a short or a long yield farm, which you can do, and we have experimented with. But it is very much a bet. It's a gamble. And when you gamble, you lose sometimes. So the issue was that we made a bet the price moved outside of our range fairly soon, just due to something we didn't see happening. Like there was some protocol went under or something, and everybody got spooked and sold a bunch of AVAX. And because of this, the price action moved outside our range. We stopped making any money. And because of the way they set up the protocol, there was a 5% fee for pulling funds off of the protocol or off of the whirlpool. So we ended up having to take an L without actually making really any money on interest. And that was just because we made a bet. We made a gamble. And you lose gambles. That's just kind of the issue. You can make smart gambles. We definitely did a lot of like directional moves as well, where we're betting on price action. But, you just have to accept the fact that you'll lose sometimes. And when you lose, you got to take L's sometimes. And that was one where we had to take an L.
So it was an impermanent loss L, pretty much. Price went out of range.
Well, no, so it was worse. We weren't making any interest. I think it was actually a one-sided pool, so I don't think we actually lost anything from impermanent loss. But the way a whirlpool works is that if it moves outside of your price range that you have established, you just stop making any interest at all until it goes back in your price range. So we could have waited for the price of AVAX to go back in the price range that we set, but we just thought it would have taken too long, that it would have made more sense just for us to pull the money and put it somewhere else where we're going to earn higher interest.
Okay, so it was impermanent loss. You guys just locked it in because you thought prices could have went further and you didn't want to just hold some shitty token.
Yeah. And well, it's the way that whirlpools work, because whirlpools are leveraged at a certain price range. When it goes outside that price range, you lose all. You're no longer in the game. You're the money you have in the pool is no longer being utilized, and thus you're not earning anything on it.
Okay.
Because like a normal liquidity pool is you're matching tokens, and it doesn't matter what the price is, as long as users are exchanging tokens for the other token in the pool, then you have the chance of earning interest on that. You have the chance of facilitating that exchange. But the way a whirlpool works is that instead of you being a facilitator to all of the exchange or the tokens, no matter what the price is, you're becoming a facilitator to the token only when it's within a certain price range. When it falls outside that price range, you no longer are a facilitator to the exchange of that token on that liquidity pool. You are no longer in the game. You're out of action completely. So you make no money on it. And we were pulled out of action. So we decided to pull out of the exchange completely. And because of the rules of the exchange, we then had to take like a 5% haircut on the funds that we pulled out.
That's good stuff.
I mean, there's a whole thing on calculating bridging. This was a big issue for us because if you're working with a lot of off chains, then you're going to be spending a lot of money just bridging tokens onto the off chain back. And there's also the issue of bridges going down, which happened on more than one occasion where a bridge went down and you're just desperately Googling, are there any other bridges for this chain? Does anybody have a way to get this money off chain? And that's another issue in itself, because then you could have a lot of funds stuck on some off chain, just hoping that somebody develops a new bridge in order to get the money off, or that the old bridge gets fixed. Because that's actually, I think, the number one way that hackers extort crypto is through bridges. I think that's actually the single number highest way. So when you move funds off of the main chains like Ethereum or Binance, if it's still one right now, though I've heard Binance has maybe some issues that could downgrade it. But if you're still on these main chains, you're fairly safe. But as soon as you want to make that high APY and you want to degen, I'm going to get on some weird off chain that uses DeFi Kingdoms, chain. I'm going to put it on that, use Jewels, whatever the fuck that is. You're exposing yourself to a massive risk that also exposes you to fees as well. And you have to keep these fees in mind, because even if you're like, oh, well, the APY is so high on this off chain, but if the fees associated and the risk associated with moving your funds off of Ethereum onto this off chain are high enough, maybe the APY is not worth it. And you gotta calculate that. The hardest thing, the most arbitrary thing to calculate is risk, though. So you have to do your own personal exploring to figure out what your risk calculation is. You know, how much do you value risk?
For sure. Okay. All right, guys. So we're going to conclude that. We're going to turn this into a little mini series. Hopefully you got value from this. Let us know in the comments what you want us to cover on one of these episodes. Like maybe there was a mistake you made in trading or yield farming, and you don't know what you should have did right. Or maybe you're trying to get started in yield farming and you want to, avoid as many mistakes as you can. Go to our website, Know It Outside XYZ. We have the best yield farming course in the world with some of the best coaches in the space. We have a whole academy that covers all these things. And then we have live strategy calls with our coaches and access to the recordings if you can't make the calls. But yeah, let us know what you want to cover next. Next week, when we do this episode again, I'm going to talk about my biggest win and my biggest loss in yield farming. And I'm going to cover the lessons I got from both of those, because you can learn from winning, but you learn more from the losses, obviously. So with that, we'll conclude this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.